LGM was, when I first came to town, and I'll do my history really fast. I was an entrepreneur, part of 3 startups, brought a company called Laundry 101 to Madison, and became so frustrated with the process to get a business started here that I ended up running for city council out of almost sheer anger. That's why I ran. And in 2003, when I decided to run, I only lived here for 3 years, and everyone said, "You're not allowed. You can't run for the city council if you've only lived in this town for 3 years. That's so arrogant, and it's not how we do things in Madison." And I stopped by the chamber, and then Chamber President Bob Brennan said, "Where did you come from? You just showed up out of nowhere." But in the course of the conversation, it was that's not how it should work. That LGM and Civitas are really the places where we should be grooming leaders. And though I was never part of LGM, I feel like a kindred spirit with you and what you guys have accomplished, and I look forward to a continued great partnership between the 2 organizations. And I love that you guys have an alumni group that stays connected and gets together and continues to fulfill that promise that you made to yourselves, to your businesses, and to the community. Today I'm going to share a little bit of my vision with you. You may have seen bits and pieces of it, but probably not seen the whole thing. So I'm going to take you on a pretty quick ride of where I think we're going as a community and as a Chamber of Commerce. Madison has an attitude. Now, it needs an attitude correction, I should say, is the better way of saying it. And so all of us in this room might have a sense of what that attitude might be. But the attitude that I'm talking about is this attitude of failure, this attitude of stagnation that you're starting to hear. You're starting to hear people say things publicly like, we're falling in the rankings. There's a report just came out about innovation. And the irony of that is that if you read the Milwaukee headlines said, Madison ranks in the top 10 for university-based innovation. Nothing about Madison. Just this is the Milwaukee newspaper saying all the good things are happening in Madison. And then you pick up the Madison newspaper and it says Milwaukee outperforms Madison when it comes to innovation. And we've got this attitude of ourselves that that things are not going as well as maybe as we had thought they were. And it's a weird compilation between the woe is me, things aren't going well, and a natural sort of arrogance that we have about the region and about all the great things that happen here. And some of it rightfully so and earned. But a great example of that is this picture. When I show this picture around and I ask people, is that a picture of somebody falling or flying? Almost always I get the answer falling. And I think it makes sense because intuitively we think about people flying and we think, well, it's not possible. And it's just like we say our schools are broken. Yet we don't, instead of looking at it, our schools are broken, we should say our schools have challenges, because that's really the situation. Our schools aren't broken. I have 3 kids in the public schools. They work just fine. I have a freshman at Memorial who's taking Chinese and engineering. I have a sophomore at Memorial who's taking accounting. We run a program called the Youth Apprenticeship Program, where we are taking kids in high school today and connecting them to apprenticeship opportunities in businesses, not just in car mechanics and HVAC repair, but in biotech, in accounting, in IT, in engineering, and in architecture. And so there are great opportunities available for us not to think pessimistically. Same thing, I have a great amount of respect for Mayor Soglin, but he says we're not special. A couple times now he's gone out and said that Madison's not special anymore. I think he's trying to make a point about we're not some anomaly. The trials and tribulations of the economy also occur here, but to phrase it that way reinforces this negative attitude about we're falling and the only place we have to go is down. But when you ask that question about flying or falling, and your intuition tells you for sure this cliff diver must be falling. So we can't imagine that we could fly. Yet we believe, intuitively, instinctively, because we've been told Superman can fly. Now, maybe not a mere mortal, but Clark Kent certainly looks like a mere mortal. And if I showed you that picture and said flying or falling, you'd all say absolutely flying. And so we can't imagine ourselves as anything other than struggling as a city right now, yet we believe that it's possible, that we believe that Superman can fly. And I think that same belief has to start to infect the rest of us in the city. There's a belief about what we are capable of. And I say we're an underperforming city a lot, and people will come to me and say, that's crazy. We've got a world-class research institution, strong business community, natural assets, a natural beauty to the region, and low unemployment. And I say, when I say underperform, I mean based on potential, because that's how you calculate performance. It's based on your potential. We underperform as a community because our potential is so great. Our potential is to be world-class when it comes to innovation and to business, yet we struggle to either imagine or believe ourselves in that role. And when you think about what it takes, the idea, if you could imagine that you could fly, and you could believe that it is possible, it leads to innovation. And I don't know if you've ever seen a squirrel suit before, but you can jump off of a cliff or out of an airplane, and you can literally fly. I mean, they fly sometimes for 20, 30 minutes at a time, and they hug the coastlines and they hug mountains. And somebody came up with this idea based on the imagination or the belief that you could innovate a way to do something that we all thought was impossible. And I think the city is in that, the region is in that same moment in time where we can innovate in a way that redefines us and lets us live up to our potential. And how does that happen? When you think about, this is called the magic quadrant. I didn't invent it. Companies use it in the technology space to measure themselves vis-a-vis their competitors. But I reformed it for the purpose of thinking about the chamber and the city and the region. And that if you have low vision and low execution, then you're just a niche player. And the chamber has spent a lot of time there. I'd say the chamber's spent a couple of decades in this place where it participated, but really was a niche player when it came to leadership and involvement in the community. If you are low vision but high execution, you're a great opponent or a competitor. Sometimes you would think of that the place where a competitor would be. But you're not the market leader. You're not driving innovation. You're not driving public policy. You're not driving the political agenda. If you're high vision, low execution, you're a visionary, which is fine, but you don't have the ability to actually execute. And we've spent a lot of time in the bottom rung as a city and as a chamber, and sometimes the city has great vision, yet lacks the ability to execute, where we should all want to be. As business leaders, as a community, as a chamber, we should want to be in that leadership position, which is high vision, high execution. That's how innovation occurs. And as I think about the chamber's perspective, how do I want innovation to occur? And when I say innovation, sometimes people they retract a little bit and say, you're just talking about technology. You're not speaking about my business. You're speaking about these tech companies I read about in the State Journal. And innovation occurs at every level. It's new solutions to old problems is really how that happens. Some of that is technology, some of it is not. But when I think about innovation in the chamber, it's these four categories which I have termed BEAM. So it's to project ourselves. And it's brand identity, economic development, advocacy, and membership.